I mean, I would say that what you are doing with microgreens is definitely plant medicine.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're going to see a new generation of much, much smaller nuclear power plants.
What does biomass fuel look like?
How we are treating people who are different than us is so antithetical to what Christianity taught originally. You have to think more like a group mind a little bit.
Yeah, so you were asking me how I found you. Somehow we were connected on LinkedIn, and I don't know how we became connected, but this is a new podcast for me. I was searching for people that are in the plant space. You're certainly in it from a standpoint of hemp.
Industrial hemp, right, okay.
Very much there, and I'm a huge fan of hemp.
Okay.
For food, medicine, industrial reasons. I grow microgreens. When I had my own farm, we were growing that in industrial hemp, like as these pads.
You were doing hemp. Oh, the hemp pads. Were you growing hemp sprouts, hemp seeds?
Yep.
Okay.
And now we have those available that are USDA organic and regenerative organic certified. Do a lot of different types of microgreens. And I think this is a good moment. I would like to gift you one of my products. So we've got products right here. There's in the green, that's a broccoli. And then in the blue, the green is a broccoli powder. And then the blue is a blend of many different types of microgreens, broccoli, radish, red cabbage, in its whole leaf form.
And dried and ground.
Freeze dried. That one, the blue one is in the whole leaf form. All of them are offered in whole leaf or in powdered form. And people use them as a garnish on their eggs, salad, sandwich, smoothie.
Oh, okay. My wife loves smoothies, so she would probably.
Which one do you think she'd prefer? The broccoli or the blend of microgreens?
Probably the blend. Just because she likes a lot of different ones.
Yeah, I've taken the heat seal off of it, so you might grab that and just open up the top and kind of give it a feel. It might go a little all over the place.
It smells wonderful. It smells delicious. But I'm not going to eat any right now.
What's your familiarity with microgreens? You shared sprouts.
I've grown sprouts before, with both in the tray and in the jar, and love them. They normally never even end up on my salad because I'm just snacking on them. And they're so vibrant. And I also like sprouted bread. I don't eat a lot of bread, but we just had some of the, like Essene bread, the real dense loaf. And we just bought that recently at Lucky's. So,
yeah, I try to do sprouted as well. Sprouted anything. My understanding is it's more bioavailable.
Very much.
So much easier for our body to consume the goodness in it.
Yeah. Well, and they're activated because they're alive. And even when you freeze them or dry them, they're still, you're not hurting any of the nutrients.
And what kind were you growing?
I did a few different ones. I did garbanzo beans. I did sunflower. What other ones would I have done? Probably wheat germ. No, not wheat germ, but wheat.
Wheatgrass.
Wheatgrass, but not. I didn't let it go to grass. Just leaving it as a sprout. I think definitely broccoli. Maybe radish, because those are spicy, and I like spicy.
Do you remember what inspired you to grow the broccoli? Just because that's a popular one that we offer.
I love broccoli. And just the whole idea of having, I like microgreens and just like lettuce and things like that. So having sprouted versions of that is also really nice. Oh, that was the other one I've made is, what is it? They're the long kind of white.
Corn?
No. It'll come to me. But
sometimes farmers will grow microgreens. Microgreens are the second phase of the plant's life when they're about 7 to 14 days old, typically grown in a growing medium, where a sprout is phase 1 of the plant's life, just grown in the mason jar.
Okay.
So the microgreens a little bit older. They go through photosynthesis. There's chlorophyll. They're about 10 times as potent as a sprout.
Oh.
They're just not much harder to grow, but they're harder to grow.
Okay.
And they take a little bit longer, but still pretty quick.
Yeah, so I've only done sprouts.
Okay, but you said you were growing some in like a tray.
Yeah, so those did get the initial leaves, the first round of leaves. So
what was the growing medium for that?
I think like a paper towel.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Because these plants are pulling pretty much everything they need just from the seed.
From the seed itself.
Yeah, there's lots of nutrients in the seed. And then as they get older, then they'll need that soil and some fertilizer that's in there to pull from. But they're pulling pretty much everything they need the first 10, 14 days from the seed.
Got it. It's like an egg. Just taking everything from the yolk or the white. Same idea.
Now, you're into permaculture as well. Is that right?
My main background is sustainability. So it's the huge umbrella. And when I graduated from college in 1980, it was called appropriate technology.
Appropriate technology.
Yeah.
I like that.
And there still is the NCAD, National Center for Appropriate Technology. So that covers pretty much everything that we now would put under the sustainability umbrella. So everything from, agriculture to architecture to human interaction to community development, all of those things. So I touched on a lot of different aspects of it. My senior thesis was aquaculture for wastewater treatment. So using plants and other biological systems to purify wastewater and not chemicals and big machines and things like that. And that was in California. So I've done a lot of different things. I've owned a solar design and construction company. I've been a chef for many years through college, then got into co-housing. So I don't know if you're familiar with that form of neighborhood development.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the US to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the US in soil and a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1 week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
Just lightly, I live in maybe it'd be considered a co-house with 3 other people that are just friends.
Shared housing, yeah.
Shared housing, yeah. Well, and what's co-housing?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with scale and the balance between privacy and community. So it's a concept that came, it's incredibly old. It's the whole idea of a small village. But it came from Denmark about 45 years ago. And it's the idea we have private homes and then shared facilities. And it's a balance. You always have a balance between privacy and community. And I helped bring that concept to the U.S. Back in 1992. Started the Co-housing Association of the United States. And now for the last 27 years, I've lived in a co-housing community in North Boulder called Nomad Co-housing. And that's the house we're selling.
Oh, okay. What is the state of co-housing in Boulder across the country?
There's about 150 neighborhoods around the country that are under that label, probably another 150 that are in the development phase of it. So it's not huge. It takes a fair amount of work, and it's not for everybody because it does require more interaction between residents, more collaboration, but you can be much more sustainable because you are sharing certain resources. You are in control of the HOA. You can design where I live, a lot of the homes are solar passive. You use the land really well by clustering the homes together and putting the parking on the edge. So it's very safe, very pedestrian oriented. We run the HOA and we use consensus. So there's a lot of aspects to it that really make it special.
Now, someone that I used to do Toastmasters with, he's involved in the co-housing space around here. His name is David.
Kavika,
yes.
Yes.
And
he lived where he was my neighbor.
Okay, I figured because he's given me a tour of his house and how he's got people renting in the basement. Then he's got that backyard space and just how he set it up. And I think he was in the world of construction or helping to build those too.
He was actually a software engineer. Ended up working for Twitter. So, but he passed away, unfortunately, got into a car accident a number of years ago.
I'm thinking of somebody else then, because this person I just saw a week or two ago. And
okay. No, not the same person.
Not the same David. Very funny. And
Does he live in Wild Sage?
I can't remember the names of...
North Boulder?
It's been a few years since I've been there, but he does the bike valet now. He supports with the bike valet at the Boulder Farmers Market. That's where I saw him.
That's Graham.
Oh, that's Graham?
Graham Hill. Well, there may be another person that's part of it.
I might be forgetting his name. I'm pretty sure it's David.
Okay. David Hansen.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So
there are 4 co-housing neighborhoods in Boulder. There's 2 in the far north, Wild Sage and Silver Sage. Silver Sage is a variation on the theme, which is for people 55 and above. But they're right across the street from each other. And then Nomad, where we are, we've been there for 27 years. And then there's another one called Washington Village, which is very close to where the old hospital used to be, Broadway and Elder, I think it is. So 4 different... The concept is the same in all of them, but the way it plays out really depends on location and orientation and size. And we're the smallest with only 11 households.
And who would you say this is the best fit for?
A lot of different. It could be certainly for retired folks, just a couple that their kids are out of the nest, but they still want to have people nearby. Certainly for families, because it's a great place for kids to grow up. Both my daughters were both born at home and lived at Nomad for up until they went away to college. Also for single people, because it's a kind of a built-in set of neighbors that you do things with, you interact with, you have activities, support one another, you take care of the yard, things like that. So it's kind of divided up that way between singles, family, and retired couples.
What would you say is the hardest part for most people?
The humorous thing that I like to say is the best thing about co-housing is that you know all your neighbors. The worst thing about co-housing is that you know all your neighbors. So it's the human interaction and how to get along, how to create strong boundaries, how to make sure your needs are getting met while contributing to the larger community. So it's definitely it's how we've always lived as humans. 95% of human history I'm curious, what do people do once it's happened to survive? This big city concept is very, very new.
And what do you think that big city is doing to our society?
Well, there's a couple factors. When it gets too big, it gets really isolating because people can't deal with that much input all the time. You go walk down the street in a real big city and you see lots and lots of people. You probably don't know any of them. And it's just too much to be able to make connections with them. So that's one. But the other big factor, and this comes back from my environmental planning, is the invention of the automobile. Because automobiles take up so much space that it forces everything apart. The amount of land that's required for streets and parking and servicing and all of that is phenomenal. It could be as much as 30-40% of an urban environment are all of those things. So imagine if you've ever been to Europe and you walk around small European towns, they were all designed before the automobile. So they're much more human scale. And that's a really important piece of all of this, is to bring it back to human scale. And that's a lot of my future visioning is around the future of the future in general, but the future of community would be to reinvigorate neighborhoods and make them more like the 15-minute neighborhood, where you can get most of what you need within a 15-minute radius of your home.
Are there good examples of that in the U.S. today? Is Boulder a good example of that? I would think in terms of biking, this is a phenomenal city to bike around.
Yeah, no, Boulder has a lot of advantages, and that is one of the reasons that I came here 35 years ago. It's changed some, but not radically. Other places like Davis, California, Madison, Wisconsin, Eugene, Oregon. There's a lot of cities that have done a lot of focus on trying to bring bringing people together, pushing the cars out a little bit and making it easier and safer for people to interact and get around, and to allow for zoning in such a way that you just don't have to go that far for things.
What needs to happen with technology or just maybe our culture to be able to support this more? Is the robo-taxis, is that going to support? Is the rise of e-bikes, does that support? How do we push these cars out? How do we encourage people to be more in this community type way?
Certainly providing more options is part of it. And I think Boulder's done a really good job with that, where you do have an extensive and very impressive bike lane system. You've got walking paths that actually allow you to go places that are important. Bike lanes on the streets. Some of them are now, highly protected. I think that really helps quite a bit. So providing people an opportunity and also gently making it harder to bike. To drive. I was the Bike Week coordinator for the city of Boulder back in the late 1980s. And I did that for a few years. And we would have a race between a car and a bike. And depending on what the route was, bikes often won. Because there's just, there's a lot of traffic. There's issues around traffic lights. There's issues around parking and all of that, finding a parking space. So I think that's certainly a piece of it. But the other bigger one is allowing the things that people need to live to be closer together. So to have small retail or office space that's nearby. I think the pandemic has changed a lot of things where people are thinking that they can do a lot more things remote and not have to get into a car or a bike or even a walk to go someplace. Delivery services are continuing to grow. So I think we are moving slowly but surely in the way of having more options like that.
Mm-hmm. How do you think about third spaces, places that the community comes together and gathers?
So one of the things about co-housing that people really appreciate is that you have your own house, you have kind of the public area, which is maybe a courtyard or various different ways that people can gather, but then you also have actual common, like a clubhouse. We call them a common house in co-housing. And it's usually like you would have a clubhouse in a condominium or townhouse complex, but these are designed to be used every day. And sometimes they'll have office space in them. Sometimes they'll just have gathering spaces in them, large dining rooms, guest rooms, kids rooms, exercise rooms, media rooms. They really vary, but it's all different opportunities for people to come together where they don't need to be in their house and they don't need to be out in in a public park. So it really is a third space. I would say, though, that the biggest third space at the moment are coffee shops. And they work obviously very well. You go into a coffee shop and you see people working in there all the time.
What where are people growing when they move into community type housing? I know as I live in shared housing, there's a lot of skill sets that I'm forced to practice and learn to be able to function in a good way with other people. Where do you see people growing? How do you see people maybe they kind of grounding into themselves or blossoming, flourishing? Like what other types of benefits might people receive from living in this way?
I think a lot of what people learn is really how to work together, how to work collaboratively. Because when you set up a housing situation where you are responsible for things collectively or you interact with people on a regular basis, you're bound to have interactions that are stressful sometimes. So learning how to work with those. One of the roles that I've had in the co-housing world for 25, 30 years is teaching things like meeting facilitation, consensus decision-making, conflict resolution, communication styles, because those are the kind of things, and for a lot of people, they don't have to do that in their daily lives. Certainly at work, some of those things are helpful, but work's typically structured very hierarchical, where co-housing is much more egalitarian, very horizontal decision-making. There's not really a leader. It's much more group-led. So it gives you an opportunity to learn things, and consensus is something that very few people know about, and it's a key component of being a successful community member.
Yeah, would you share more on that? Give us that structure or help people to understand what consensus is and how they might go through that process and how they might incorporate that into their own homes, work.
Sure. So typically what people, when they think of having a meeting, they think about coming together with people to make decisions, it's very typical Robert's Rules of Orders where you have a voting system. And once you have 51% of people that agree with one direction, it usually passes and then they can move forward. But the reality is that means you've got 49% of the people who are probably not very happy with what the decision is. So they tend to not stick. And you end up remaking decisions and going back or just having conflict because you've got a large number of people who don't really like the decision that was being made. Consensus comes from a different perspective. It's saying, what can we do where we can get the most people possible consenting to the decision? It doesn't mean they all love it. It doesn't mean they all think that it's absolutely the right way to go, but they can live with it. And it's important for people to understand that when you are doing a consensus model, you have to think more like a group mind a little bit. Like what's the best decision for the group, for the community, for the company? And so you have to be thinking about it in that way. Now, it doesn't mean you can't say, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. That's totally fine. And if enough people say they don't think it's a good idea, then obviously you need to continue to work the decision through. This comes from the Quakers. They've been doing it for 350 years. And that came from the Iroquois Confederacy, from the Native Americans who've been doing it for thousands of years. So the whole idea is that you make the strongest, most lasting decision when you can get supermajority buy-in. It doesn't mean it has to be 100%, even though that is often what's considered consensus. But you definitely don't want people who are saying this is absolutely not the right decision for us to do, and then you just keep working it through until you have enough people that say yes, that's the right thing.
And is everyone coming together and there's like a consensus meeting, or is this how is the communication happening?
So someone will, let's say it's in a co-housing neighborhood and there's a decision to build a tool shed or a proposal to build a tool shed. So they'll put it out there and people will ask questions about it. They may need a lot of information before they can come up with a final decision. So it gets worked through. Sometimes the decisions take longer. It may take more than one meeting, but you get all the information, you talk it through. People will say one concept is that everybody holds a piece of the truth. So it's really, really important to make sure that everybody contributes their thought and their feelings into the decision. So that's something that is, you need a facilitator, a good facilitator that can do that and make sure that they are, especially the quiet people, that you pull them out and find out, what do you think about this? And eventually you kind of get to the point where you realize that the concerns have all been met. So you would say, here's the proposal, and kind of lay it out again. And you say, is there anybody here that feels that this is not the right decision? Then you have silence, and then it's like, okay, we've reached consensus, and you move on.
Now, what brought you into this line of work? Hearing that you studied some of this at university, did you grow up in a home that that you were learning some of these types of ways, or what did growing up look like?
Well, I grew up in a small little village called Los Angeles. So no way were any of these things taught. It was not part of the culture at all. When I went away to college, I started to get involved later part of my college years in anti-war, social justice. It wasn't called that at that point, but different types of things. And people created affinity groups, and they created smaller subsets of people who were doing actions or making decisions or being involved with political activities, and they would make decisions collectively. I didn't officially learn about it until I got involved with co-housing and learned that consensus. It's just an integral part of it. And I went through several trainings to be able to learn how it works, how to teach it, how to facilitate meetings where that was the decision making. So it's definitely something that I learned, kind of post college.
Was there an event in your life that sparked your interest or this path, or did it just kind of all unfold?
Yeah. So when I was, I guess, in my senior year of college, my fourth or fifth year, I was a marine biology major, and I had the opportunity to go out and work on a little island documenting the life of elephant seals. It's kind of my Jacques Cousteau experience. And it was fascinating. We went out there every weekend for a whole winter, put on wetsuits and got into a little rubber raft and went out to the island and then stayed there for the weekend and observed. It was a sociobiology study. So we were following just the whole life of these animals when they would come ashore, give birth and mate and, nurse and die and fight and, everything. And we just kept track of all that.
And what islands?
This was called Año Nuevo Island off the coast of Santa Cruz, so in Northern California. At the same time, I was taking a class on campus called Utopian Visions in a Modern Society by a very influential a man who became my mentor. And we read a number of books, kind of utopian type books. Ecotopia was one that was really influential for me. And it talked about how we could reorganize our communities, our cities, to be sustainable. I mean, that wasn't the word that was used back then, but to be much more egalitarian, to be more environmental, to really be in such a way that you can live that way in a peaceful, harmonious, productive way. And I had this kind of aha where I just said, wow, I think it's more important for me to follow that path than to, follow elephant seals. So I made a switch at that point and went from marine biology into environmental planning. And that was where I began to think about community and sustainable community, much more environmentally supportive. So I made that switch in my last year and started to investigate intentional communities. And when I graduated, I went off to be a planner, an environmental planner for an intentional community in Oregon. That was quite an experience because I thought I was going to be showing up there to be a planner and help them, because this was a 2,500 acre or 1,200 acres, 2,500 people. So it was going to be a small town. And I got there, and very shortly after I arrived, the wife of the founder passed away. And it was a huge setback for everyone. And I ended up taking on a huge role in terms of managing the visitors campground, managing the office, putting together the newsletter, all of those type of things at once. And I really watched how that was done. And the founder had a great vision, a really incredible, enticing, that would just attract people, ongoingly. But he was not very good at playing with others. So people would come with lots of energy and lots of good ideas, and he would kind of go, okay, well, we'll see about that. And he never really empowered them. He never included their ideas, and they would just then drift away. So I learned a lot about what not to do in terms of creating community, and a lot of it had to do with the decision-making style of, you have a visionary leader who just can't open up and allow other people to be part of that. And co-housing is kind of the other end of that spectrum, where everybody is encouraged to bring their best to the table and their ideas, and then you meld those together to come up with how the group's going to move forward.
Describe a visionary leader from your experience. What is an effective visionary leader?
Well, there are certainly way more not effective leaders, because there's a certain energy that's required to get something off the ground, and being really charismatic, being very being able to articulate what the vision is and to make it really compelling, and then to bring the resources together to get it off the ground. So, I mean, Paolo Soleri, I think, is a really good example. He was an architect, and he created Arcosante in Arizona. There's a number of people that in the intentional communities movement who I think are Laird Schaub, who just recently passed away, was a really, really wonderful leader and teacher, and his focus was interaction in terms of consensus decision making and all of those things. My teacher, Caroline, you'll have to cut this out.
We will.
Oh, Caroline Estes. Caroline Estes was a Quaker, and she was involved in a number of intentional communities from the very beginning. And she was just, again, really inspiring, a good leader. She could bring people together. And I think those are the qualities that are really important.
Do those qualities run through the Quaker community? Is this I don't know much about the Quakers.
I neither do I. In terms, I just know that a few people that have come from that, and that the consensus decision-making model is credited as coming from the Quaker community, because that's how those communities make their decisions and have for hundreds of years.
Now, you come at sustainability in a very holistic way. It seems like you have practiced from many different angles, from food to the housing to writing about it. Mm-hmm. What does you shared that you studied utopian type society? Was the Protopian, was that a term back then, or where did that come from?
The concept of protopia is actually very new. It was created, or at least coined, by Mark Kelly. He's the editor, or was the editor, for Wired magazine. And the concept of protopia is that it's a future that is slowly but surely getting better year after year after year. So it's not utopia, it's not perfect, not even close to perfect. And utopia by definition means, no place and impossible. And it's certainly not dystopia, which is incredibly popular right now. I mean, if you're looking for books to read, 90% of them are going to all be dystopia.
Why do you think that is?
I think it just taps into people's imagination about incredibly huge cataclysmic things that could happen, and then how do people deal with them? And that's why I read them, is because I'm not so interested in whether or not it's an EMP disaster or a meteor or a tidal wave or ice, whatever, some environmental catastrophe. I'm curious, what do people do once it's happened to survive? And most of these stories have an element of that, near the end, where you get to have the main characters figuring out some way to survive, or reconnecting with their family, or building something that is kind of a new way of living that works. And the theme through all of them is the secret to surviving is community.
Yeah, the secret to surviving in these dystopian worlds is community. In one of your books, Catapult, you write about when did you write that book?
I wrote the first version probably about 2011, 2012. But the idea actually goes all the way back to that Utopian Visions class that I took in college back in 1979. And my feeling is that people needed to see a realistic version of how a future could be better and sustainable, but realistic. So what I wanted to do was to create a story that showed examples of how a community would operate and how it would be how it would be more sustainable. But I realized that just taking people on a tour of a new community like Epcot would be pretty boring. So then I wrapped around this fairly complex dual timeline mystery that it's set both in 2025 and 2065. So I was looking into the future, and now the future has arrived, and we're seeing, how it is. But the 2065 is really showing a future where we've adapted to climate change. We've figured out how to reorganize our communities so that they are more sustainable, and that we've learned to interact in a way that is more positive.
So the character, is it Danielle? I haven't read it.
Yeah.
He is an AI engineer.
Yeah, it's actually a she.
Excuse me, Danielle. She is an AI engineer, and you've got these two timelines, 2025 and 2065. It is interesting that now we're here in 2025. You wrote this 15, 20 years ago. How does like current, the year that we're living in compare to the book, and how do you think about those guesses, predictions from when you originally wrote it?
So one of the challenges in 2025, when I wrote it, like you said, 20 years ago, was the story was originally called Gridlock. And that would be where you're driving on the freeway and all of a sudden everything comes to a stop. And it's not like traffic here in Denver or even in LA, where it comes to a stop and you might as well get out and walk because it's not going anywhere. Now, that was a word that was not even coined back then. And now it's common. And not only that, but these kind of traffic jams that last for hours or sometimes days have happened. So a lot of what people, when they look to me around my futurist writings, is that I can pretty accurately predict the trends of what's going to happen. So a lot of what's going on right now, especially with the environmental issues and the climate change issues, were things that I was talking about when I first wrote this. So a lot of it has come to pass. Now, of course, there's variations on the theme, and certain places are better than others. But a lot of the 2025 things that I was talking about definitely have happened.
What are some of those things for those that haven't read it?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the environment in terms of the climate, the economy, where a lot of people have lost jobs. And right now we're in a situation where there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen, especially given the federal government tumult that's going on. I think that's going to continue for a while. I have a housemate who worked for one of the labs, and she got fired. And then she got rehired, and then she got fired again, and then she resigned after that when she got back. So it's been kind of crazy. So the economics thing, the environmental in terms of, climate change has many different aspects to it, but part of it has to do with water, and that's why water is a big issue that I assumed was going to be a big deal in that series. So Catapult's the first book in the series. I have a second one out called Descent, which is kind of the beginning of figuring out how do we make a transition. And then there'll be a couple more books that go on. What's unique about Catapult, though, is that you've got these two timelines that are 40 years apart. So you kind of know how things end up. The books that I'm writing now, Descent and Seedlings and the ones after that, are in between that 40-year time span. So it really helps you understand how did we get from here to there. And that's kind of the place that I am most excited about, is really helping people understand a strategy on how do we get from here to there that's realistic and can be done over a couple decade period of time.
Where would you say the federal government is really supporting in around the environment, and where do you see that there's some room for improvement?
Well, we were on an interesting, mostly positive course up until a year or so ago. I think the whole shift towards renewable energy is really helpful. I will add, though, that renewable energy by itself is not the solution. It's a combination of renewable energy and using energy more efficiently, using less energy for the things that you need. So I think that's part of the shift that we need to go through. And right now, all of that is being dismantled. So we'll have to see what how far that goes and what it's going to take to get it back on track.
So some theme of AI that I understand in your books, AI being a huge consumer of energy. Like we're not even close to being able to produce enough energy for the demands that AI alone needs for energy. How do you see AI today? And when you look out into the future, who is AI to us? And then how does that work with our with its energy needs?
Yeah, AI is a complicated, emerging realm of issues. I'm not surprised that it's come into being, even though when I wrote Catapult, it didn't exist. So really what Danielle does is she creates a really high-level computer program that allows people to see how they could evolve a community and make it kind of weave it back into a series of smaller neighborhoods, more self-sufficient neighborhoods and things like that. And the AI portion was really just added on much more recently because that is probably what somebody would use to create some kind of a learning software that would be able to do that successfully. My relationship with AI is very new, and my daughter introduced me to ChatGPT, which is a very popular platform for that. And I'm now using it to augment my writing, where I'll write a chapter and then I will take it to ChatGPT and say, please, edit this. And it'll spit back something that is, much more polished, but also I have to go back through and correct it and make sure that it is accurate in terms of the storyline that I'm creating. So I can see how it can be really beneficial for that, but I think it's also something that we don't even have a clue how it's really going to impact us. In terms of the energy, though, I have heard that a number of the companies like NVIDIA are now coming out with chips that are specifically for AI that use a lot less energy. I don't know if that's going to help, but it's certainly, they realize that it's a big energy draw, and that's something that we need to figure out how to deal with.
How do you think about nuclear energy?
Well, the issue of nuclear energy, and I've been an anti-nuclear activist for a long, long time, is that we haven't figured out the whole issue of waste. And the power plants that we've been working with and developing for the last 30, 40, 50 years, create waste that we just are storing away at this point. And there really is no solution yet. What I suspect is going to happen is we're going to see a new generation of much, much smaller nuclear power plants that are maybe more the neighborhood scale that probably still generate waste, but maybe at a much smaller level. And because of the scale, the danger is less. It's certainly not my first choice, but I think it's going to end up in the mix somewhere. And they're coming up with other kinds of solutions, thorium reactors that supposedly have a lot less radioactivity when the fuel is used. So I think there's definitely research going on, but as we saw, the large power plants have been stopped just because of the cost, the time to build them, and then the unfigured out waste issue of storing the waste.
Any insights into if the U.S. has any newer nuclear power plants? From my understanding, we haven't built a nuclear power plant in several decades.
Yeah, as far as I know, the large-scale nuclear power plant is still on the shelf. It's still it's been shelved. So I don't think we're going to see much of that. There certainly is more push toward nuclear because it's supposedly, it doesn't have carbon. The carbon footprint is smaller when you talk about the power plant itself. But when you talk about what's involved in mining and refining the fuel, huge carbon footprint, but that doesn't seem to be added in. So I don't think it's going to be a very big piece of it. But some countries certainly, like France and the Soviet Union, Russia, they certainly have a big footprint around nuclear power. But I think they are moving much more toward renewables.
In this protopian world, what does energy production look like?
In a protopian world, the kind of energy production that I think would be expected, two things, and I describe it as shifting the economy from an energy extraction model to an energy harvesting model. So right now, most of our energy, natural gas, coal, nuclear, is all being pulled out of the ground, refined, and then used, burned, or used up in some way. The energy model that I'm proposing is what I call a harvest model. So that's where you're harvesting sunlight, solar panels. You're harvesting wind. You're harvesting biomass. So that would be, anything from sugarcane to industrial hemp to just sweetgrass, other kinds of things that you can harvest and get energy out of them. And then geothermal, where you're harvesting the warmth of the earth. So that, I think, is where we are heading. But the only way that works is if we can reorganize ourselves in such a way that we just need less energy overall. So using less is a really important, critical aspect of it.
What does biomass fuel look like?
So it's everything from trees, where you're growing trees that are then burned, waste to, garbage to energy, other kinds of living matter that you grow specifically to convert into energy. And there's a few different ways that they do that, but it's, for the most part, it's large trees or grass. Industrial hemp has been used in some places for that, because anything that grows really quickly, you can harvest it and dry it, grind it up, and then put it into a reactor that either creates biogas or electricity by actually burning it.
Do you believe that there's any past civilizations, cultures that were harnessing electricity, that they were using energy in maybe a similar type of way that we are today?
That's a great question. I think that there were ancient civilizations that certainly had technologies that we have not tapped into yet, using light energy, Tesla talked about harvesting energy directly out of the air, and he got kind of blocked because of the other solutions that were coming into being at the time. And so I do believe that there are other ways out there of people talk about crystals having energy. I think the ancient Egyptians did things that we don't understand yet. And if you believe in other ancient civilizations like Atlantis, they obviously had other kinds of technologies that we are not privy to now. But I think we are beginning to slowly move in that direction and trying to find other ways of generating energy.
Have you spent time studying Egypt or Atlantis?
No.
There's some new studies out, some new shares that they've taken these LiDAR devices, which is basically like X-ray, that they could look through the jungle canopy, or they could look underground like hundreds or thousands of feet. They're just like X-raying like hundreds of feet under the ground. And recently in Egypt, some LiDAR came out under the Great Pyramids of these columns that seem to go like, have you seen that?
I have seen that, yeah.
It's a column, 4 or 8 columns, I'm forgetting now, that go like, I don't know, a mile underground. And the thought is that these are some type of energy absorbing, producing, that these pyramids are actually like power plants in some kind of a way.
I think we are going to discover that there's a lot more to these ancient structures than we believed. Being able to use technology to discover what we haven't seen yet. I saw a recent where the heads of Easter Island, those giant heads, where they excavated one, and there's like a 20, 30 foot body beneath the head. It's like, well, how did that get there? There's just so many unanswered questions that I think are fascinating, that I hope we are able to devote time and energy and money to figure those out and to learn more about them. And I think the pyramids, they're in Egypt, but they're also all over Mexico and in South America. They're all over. And what was that all about? What civilizations created those kind of things? And I do believe that there have been other civilizations before. We talk about the flood, which I think they are assuming is about 10 or 12,000 years ago. So I think there was a lot going on before that got wiped out, and maybe even before that. So, history is something that I think we know very little about. And a lot of the things that we're doing nowadays are beginning to try to unearth some of the learnings that we are learning or remembering. If you believe in reincarnation, I think there's just so much more than what our five senses can follow.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on reincarnation?
I think there's enough stories out there of people knowing things that they couldn't know that makes me think, okay, there's more to this than what modern science believes in. So I'm really open to that idea. I think the Tibetan lamas, these lamas are picked, like the Dalai Lama picked when they're like tiny children, when they're just a few years old, and the elders say, okay, this one's got the right formula to be able to do it. And there are people who have come to our awareness who actually do know stuff that there's no way they could know it. So I think there's definitely something there.
And do you have a sense for when you have rememberings, do you have a sense for past lives or past learnings or past work that you've done?
I've done a tiny bit of past life work. And one of them, which I think would be interesting, is supposedly I was a scout in the early years of the U.S., and my job was to go out and try to find locations for new towns, which is, I thought, well, that's interesting because that's kind of the stuff I'm involved with now. So, when I learn about, or I'm told or exposed to past life ideas, I think, well, is there anything that I can learn about what I'm hearing that is helpful now, as opposed to me being, just some kind of a famous person or a slave or whatever. It's more, what are the lessons that I could use now that I might have learned back then, and just keep bringing it into the current time.
Yeah, if you can go back to any point in history just to look around, where would you go?
When would I go? Oh, that's interesting.
When and where? Just drop yourself in and be like, for me, it's like, how are you guys building these pyramids? The Great Pyramids, like, how is this happening, and what is going on here, and how are you doing it, and what's like the motivation? And
yeah, no, that obviously is a lot of questions that are that would be interesting. I mean, I am curious to know what it was like at the time of Jesus. Being Jewish, I don't have the same kind of a relationship to Jesus that a Christian would have right now, but obviously the impact that this soul has had is so profound that I'd be curious to know what was actually happening back then. What did the things that we are reading actually happen? What was he really like? Because it's so interesting when people talk about, if you are being a good Christian now, you would be following what Jesus said. And the things that Jesus said are not what Christians are espousing right now, at least the major ones. So I think it's been reinterpreted. I think if he came back right now, he'd be really pissed.
Yeah, share more on that. How are the Christians acting in generalities versus Jesus' teachings?
Well, my understanding is that he taught love. He taught compassion, supporting the people in the community who were the worse off, the poor, the disabled, the mentally different. So right now, the things that are going on where people are, like everything around immigrants and around how we are treating people who are different than us, is so antithetical to what Christianity taught originally. So I think that's really the biggest thing. It's just the level of tolerance, the lack of compassion, all of those things are really just seem way off in terms of what I would think a true Christian would be believing.
Yeah, that Christians are accepting and they want to help the less fortunate, and they want to, just lift up other people. And your experience is, especially around, I don't know the politically correct word, illegal aliens, or is less so that way.
Yes, and I think people need to take a wider view of this and realize that pretty much everyone in this country is an alien. I mean, the only people who really, I think, are native would be the people that were here before the white person showed up. And look how we treated them.
Now, we're in an interesting moment in Boulder. We were just in the news because my understanding, illegal alien from Egypt went to our courthouse downtown Boulder, where there was a weekly gathering of, my understanding is Jewish people that were, maybe you could explain it a little bit better.
I don't know much more than that, but this was a regular gathering of Jews. I believe they take a walk. They'll walk around Boulder, but right now, at least in that gathering, their focus was on the remaining hostages that are still being held by Hamas. And they were saying that, we really, really need to do something to get the rest of those hostages back. And what I find really sad and also frustrating is that most things people are either or. So it's kind of like if you are pro-Israel, that means you are anti-Palestinian. And it's like, can't you be both? Or if you are pro-Palestinian, it means they interpret it that you are pro-Hamas, which is like a terror organization. So I find it really frustrating that there's so much unwillingness to be able to hold both of those. I mean, be pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. And how do you move forward with that, in mind? So it's not that I agree with how I do not agree with how Israel is handling the whole Gaza situation. But again, they are saying they're fighting against Hamas, and the Palestinians are just being slaughtered in the middle of it all. So yeah, I don't agree with what's going on, but what happened here in Boulder shows that there's very, very strong feelings about it. And when someone who supports the Palestinians, I'm assuming, sees a group of Jews that are saying we want our hostages back, and they respond with flamethrower, it's like it's over the top.
Yeah, where's the line in your mind on who we should be letting in, how open the border should be versus not letting people like this terrorist in?
Yeah. Well, obviously he wasn't a terrorist when he and his family came here. I don't know his history. I don't know how long he's been here. Sounds like he's overstayed his visa. That's a whole nother story. Just the administration of all that. I mean, we have had open borders for the whole history of our country. And at times it's caused problems when there's been huge waves of people. Now, the reason that there have been huge waves is that from those people's perspective, life here is way better than where they were. So it's not like they're coming here to make trouble. They're coming here to renew a new lease on life, or to make sure that their children have a better life. So they're coming here for a positive reason and leaving something that's pretty negative.
You would hope so. I mean, there can be some bad actors in the mix as well. There can be some people that are coming here just to cause trouble as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the 9/11 terrorists, those 19 people who mostly came from Saudi Arabia, that's a perfect example of people getting through and then causing great harm. There's absolutely that. But that's like such a small percentage of people. And right now, when the administration is saying that we're getting flooded by horrible people, that's just not true. So, how do you weed those people out and then allow some kind of a system to allow people who have a good reason to come here, have them come through and have them vetted?
Yeah. And how much do you think the U.S. should be supporting these people and lifting them up and helping them, once they arrive, like what is our obligation to those crossing the border?
Yeah, I don't know that much about what rights and what privileges and what resources they are given. I've heard all sorts of stories that they get all sorts of stuff. I don't know how much of that is true. I think the reality is we've often sheltered them at the very beginning, helped them find a place to go. Maybe they have friends or relatives somewhere and they end up there. I mean, the people, my grandparents came through Ellis Island from Eastern Europe, and they mostly ended up being with family. A lot of the social services that we have now didn't exist back then, so that wasn't an issue. They can't vote. I don't know if they can't get Social Security. I don't know what they can get. So I'm not that qualified to talk about that.
Yeah, same. I had Aaron Brockett in here about 2 weeks ago, and I'm sure you're familiar with him.
I know Aaron, yeah.
Yeah, and the mayor of Boulder. He said the number one issue that he faces today is homelessness. And how, from your perspective, homelessness in Boulder, Denver is a sanctuary city. What does that mean? My understanding is it means we'll just basically take anybody in. So there's more people coming to Denver and New York and San Francisco, Chicago, these other sanctuary cities, and it makes it really challenging for the city. The homelessness, one from illegal aliens, two from people that maybe have been here for a very long time that are having mental, I don't know. I don't know all the politically correct. I'm like trying to dance around the politically correct ways to say these things, but like mental illnesses and substance abuse and these types of ways. And that a lot of, and just last month, in 1 week, Aaron shared with me, 4 people died from a fentanyl overdose. How is this fentanyl coming in as well? Part of the narrative is that's from the open border being smuggled in through open borders. I wonder your perspective on homelessness in Boulder and how Boulder is just dealing with that.
I think Boulder has, a lot of cities are dealing with huge amounts of homelessness. And I think part of it is that Boulder is it's a more welcoming community for these people than others. As you said, a lot of them have been here for a long time. I think there's a variety of people who are kind of on the edge. Vietnam, veterans are a big one, and I think the fact that we have veterans that are homeless, that are sick mentally or physically, is a crime, and I think we really owe it to our veterans to at least give them a safe place to be. One of the things, I don't know if you remember this, but Ronald Reagan had a big step where he basically dismantled the mental health system.
The insane asylums.
Exactly.
To shut them all down.
Right. So that pushed people out of there and onto the street.
And in many ways, those insane asylums were not very positive places. But they did house a lot of people that had mental health issues.
Yeah. And it's really different for someone who's like out of work and just, having bad luck or something like that. That's a whole nother story than someone that's really dealing with mental issues or substance abuse, which may be something that either started because of an illness and they got addicted to something, or just the stress of being homeless or being poor caused them to move toward some kind of drug addiction. So these are all interrelated. And I think it's something that Boulder obviously needs to deal with. Boulder's a very expensive place, as we know. So that makes it really challenging for people to survive here. So a lot of people who are here, maybe people who are here who are working and housed now, but they get into a bicycle accident and ended up on painkillers, and before you know it, they're homeless and on the street and dealing with things. So it doesn't take much to take someone from a fairly stable lifestyle into homelessness if something unexpected happens. And then that's just part of our system right now, that we don't have ways of keeping people from going down that path.
Any insights on what the solution looks like? And it's like every state's dealing with it. No one's figured it out. A lot of places, like where you're from, LA, is throwing billions of dollars at it. And it almost seems like it is pessimistically a bit of a cash grab, that there's a lot of economy around that. And these people want to keep their jobs, where they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix the homeless issue. But they would be putting themselves out of a job if they did.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a hard question because there's so many different elements to it. But I spent a tiny bit of time in Scandinavia, and that's where co-housing started. And it's really interesting because they don't have anywhere near the same level of these, but they have very, very high taxes. And those taxes go to support social services. So if you lose your job, you can have a minimum survivable wage that you can still get. So and then you have universal health care. So if you get sick, you aren't all of a sudden going into bankruptcy. But that's a system that believes that a social support network is critical and is willing to put a lot more money into it. So I think the capitalist system we have now has gone so far in one direction that it just doesn't allow for supporting these other things. And people get upset if people are getting benefits that they don't think they should get.
Yeah. What are some good models out there? You said Scandinavia. I mean, they have high taxes. I wouldn't mind higher taxes if I thought my government would be efficient with it and not just turn it into bombs or just steal it.
Yeah. No, I think the priority that the culture, that the society sets, has a lot to do with where the money goes. And I agree with you. I mean, in Boulder, we have pretty high taxes because we do have a lot of services. Bike lanes are expensive. So there's a lot of different things that we get here. But on a federal level, I think it's something that we need to be talking about more. People like Bernie Sanders have been pushing that for whatever. It's just so interesting how a lot of these concepts have been demonized. I mean, when people talk about, that's a socialistic direction that you're going, I say, well, Social Security, a lot of the minimum health care that we have right now, Medicare, Medicaid, those are all social programs that were instituted many years ago to help support people who were kind of at the margins. And now those are being attacked. And I think the direction that the government is going right now is just going to make things worse.
Yeah. What direction is the government going?
I think they are being, much more conservative. They're they're proposing programs that take money away from those that are less well-heeled, and giving tax breaks and things like that to people who really don't need more tax breaks. I mean, the theory is that if you give a very wealthy person a tax break, that they're going to do really good things with that money. And that
trickle-down effect.
Right, and that does not seem to be
it's not real.
What happens. I do want to touch on the other book series that I've got, the Silo 42 series.
Please.
I don't know if you saw that anywhere?
I did. I've read just so it's 50 different silos throughout. Is it throughout the U.S. or the world?
The U.S.
The U.S.
Actually, it's all in one place.
Oh, which place is that?
Fulton County, Georgia.
Oh, okay. And then these silos, they don't know that each one exists?
Correct. Yeah. No, this was a series of ebooks that was written about 15 years ago that talked about silo. And in the book, it's basically a silo that 10,000 people got shoved into, and he creates this world that on how they survive, how they interact, with the conflict that's there, and he just created this very unique world. And you don't know anything more than that. And then over time, as the story expands, you start to learn more and more. And as you've mentioned, there is not one silo. There are more than one silo. And I got very excited about the reality of that story when it first came out, and asked permission, can I write a fan fiction? And Hugh Howey said yes. which he said to a lot of people. So there's like 100 fan fictions out there. And mine is called Silo 42. So I took this dystopian world where these people were in an underground silo after a nuclear war, and said, how can I make this sustainable? How can I take all the knowledge that I have around living a better, more sustainable life and shove it into this dystopian world? So I wrote my first book. The first time I wrote it, the first issue was about 10 years ago. And then recently it was taken up, about 3 years ago, it was taken up by Apple TV as a series. And there's been 2 seasons so far on Apple TV.
I did not know that. Of your book, Silo 42?
Not of my book, no, of the original book.
Oh, excuse me, okay.
Yeah, of Silo, Hugh Howey's trilogy. And they've now gone through the first 2 seasons, which is essentially the first of his 3 books. There's going to be 2 more seasons that are filming right now. So what I've written is something that's kind of a parallel story that talks about what people did in another silo that was much more sustainable. And then just today, my third book called Silo 42 Exodus was released on Amazon. So I now have 3 books on Amazon that are talking about the silo, a much more sustainable silo. And what I'm excited about is in this Exodus one, there's a small number of people who actually leave the silo, figure out a way to survive until they get, hopefully, to a place where they can actually live. And it'll be the story of them journeying to another place and then building a new community.
Have you thought about doing an audio book version?
All of them are on audio as well.
Oh, they are. Oh, I was looking into this before. I was like, I'm traveling around and I would wanted to listen to it, but I did not see it on Amazon. Where can people find the audiobook?
If you go to Amazon and you go to Silo 42, you'll see the different options. So there's an ebook. The audios are newer.
Okay.
Amazon has made it much easier to create an audiobook. So now there's the ebook, softcover book, and an audiobook for all 3 of them.
Oh, beautiful. And did you do the voice recording?
No, AI.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, they're making it very easy to create an audio bite. You give them the text, and then you can pick one of 50 voices that they have with different accents, male, female, different ages. And they're pretty good. I mean, the technology is getting to the point where you can tell that it's AI, but it still sounds really good.
That's interesting if they could do the AI in your voice.
That would be really interesting. But my first step is I would hope that they could do a few different voices so that the characters really stand out.
Yeah, some of my favorite audio books, there's either one actor doing a few different voices or there's a few different voices in there, and that adds quite a bit.
Yeah, and I've heard that it's definitely moving in that direction. So for Catapult and Descent, I've actually got a female voice because the main protagonists in both of those stories are all female. But in the Silo 42 series, I'm using a male voice.
So when you're writing and it sounds like you would describe yourself as a bit of a futurist. Definitely. Where do you see the U.S. in the next, what's something that might disrupt or people be surprised about maybe in the next 1, 5, 10 years? Can you give us any look into your crystal ball and share anything that you're seeing?
Well, what's happening right now at the federal level is really disheartening because it is eliminating a lot of progress that was what I believe to be progress that has been made over the last 10, 20 years. If it turns out to be a short-term kind of misdirection, and in 4 years we have a new president who really does want to go more of a humanistic and sustainable way, then I think we have the opportunity to use a lot of the technologies and the things that we're learning to create, I guess, more resilient communities. A lot of that has to do with the food production we do, energy production, the form of housing that we have, that all contribute to building a stronger sense of community as well as that. And in Catapult and in Descent, the second book in that series, that's really what I'm showing, is how the communities are beginning to relocalize energy production, becoming more decentralized. So you have these smaller ways, renewable. A lot of the technologies that I mention in these books all exist. I'm not making anything up, but they don't exist at that scale, and they don't work together. So for instance, I guess it's in Catapult, there is a school that was converted into a wastewater treatment plant. But it's not a typical wastewater treatment plant, because you go in and it's just a series of big ponds with beautiful plants growing on top of them. And those are then harvested and they create methane from those. And then they end up using them to heat the building. And then the water is then recycled, and either for drinking if they treat it more, or just using in agriculture nearby. So a lot of these things are being used and reused as more of a circular economy. And that, as has been proven, is a much more economical way of doing things, as opposed to what they call the 1,500-mile salad, where you're importing your salad from South America that you're eating on your plate.
This podcast is brought to you by B Micro, organic freeze-dried microgreens for easy, natural nutrition. Sprinkle them on any meal and enjoy the benefits. Shop now at bmicro.farm and use code STEVE15 to save.
What's some practical advice you could give people based on your future predictions, whether it's how and where they live, what they're doing for work, what they're doing to start to educate themselves, learn new skills? What advice might you offer people?
Well, there's a lot of different directions people can go, and it depends on their ability, depends on their living situation, their family situation. But I think a lot of it has to do with go meet your neighbors. That's kind of a first thing, so that you are feeling a little bit more connected. And if something goes wrong, somebody close by that could probably help. In our co-housing neighborhood, we only have 11 households, but we know everyone else. We know their skills. We know their talents. We know their uniquenesses. So that really helps build a sense of community. I think becoming more local, so supporting local businesses, supporting buying local food. I know it's more expensive. Maybe you can grow a little bit more. I mean, more and more people are raising chickens. Not roosters, but chickens, to be able to have, fresh eggs nearby.
You could turn table scraps into eggs. I had chickens for a while.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable. It's like magic. You're like, oh, I've got all this, and just scraps of vegetables and food, and the chickens will, lovingly eat it and turn into eggs for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think that's all true. So I think part of it is just being more efficient in what you do. Instead of going and getting a coffee cup and buying coffee and getting a coffee cup every time, bring your coffee mug. I know it's a little thing, but I think we use like 100 million coffee cups a month in the country.
And those cups are poisoning us. They look like they're paper, but they're really plastic. You put hot water in plastic, and that plastic is seeping into the water, and now you're drinking plastic, and it affects us in many negative ways, and it's really hard to get it out of the body once it's in.
Yeah. I think what you're doing around microgreens is really important, because that's a way that you can grow food very locally, very high, very nutritious, very energy efficient. So all of those things help. That's kind of touching on 3 or 4 different areas. Living in homes that are as energy efficient as they can be. I think that's a piece of it, but even more so being able to collaborate with neighbors. We have 1 lawnmower and 1 snowblower for 11 households where I live at Nomad. So that's another example of being able to just use less resources and use it well. Car sharing. I mean, we are a member of Colorado Car Share. So when I need a car, I don't have a car here right now. And part of what we are doing is just when we need it, we then just go and rent it for a few hours, and it's way cheaper than maintaining a car. It's cheaper than renting, a car from a main car rental company. So there's creative ways that you can do it. There's scooters everywhere, so you can get around. So you don't really need a car. Over the last year and a half, I've been living in Costa Rica. So I'm beginning that transition of once we sell our house here, we'll be moving to Costa Rica full time. And I've been consulting on an eco-village there, actually 2 different eco-villages, which is kind of like co-housing, but times 10, where you have housing, you have people that are collaborating, working together. One of them has a school that's connected to it. One has a farm, a permaculture farm that's connected to it. So again, it's trying to reweave the neighborhood in such a way that you end up having a lot of the things that you need really close by, and knowing your farmer, knowing the people that you work with, knowing your neighbors, collaborating on things, sharing resources, and all of those things. So being able to do more of that intentionally here, I think would be certainly a step in the right direction.
What would it cost somebody to get into that eco-village in Costa Rica? Say I'm interested. I want to go live in your eco-village.
I mean, the cost can vary a lot, and it depends. There's a number of places there where it's more communal, where you may not have your own house. You may be part of a larger house, and you go there, and there may not be a cost to get involved, but you're working, you're contributing to that community. Then there's ones where you go, like one of the ones that we were consulting with, you would buy a lot. And that can be everywhere from $100,000 up to $300,000 in those that I know of. I know there's some that are even less and more expensive. And then you build something. You could maybe build a yurt or a container house, a tiny house, or you can build something much bigger. So it really does vary quite a bit. But I think the bigger issue is being willing to move yourself and your family from here to another place. And that's something that I suggest that people are curious about that they do it, they test it out. I mean, we planned to go to Costa Rica for 3 months during the rainy season to see how that was. And it turned into a year and a half being there and saying, yes, we want to do that. Doesn't hurt that things here are feeling so divisive that it doesn't feel, as good or as safe to be in the U.S.
What's the state of Costa Rica right now? Like, how are they doing from their economy? What's their government like? What's their cost of living?
Costa Rica is considered to be one of the more developed countries within Central America. It's got a stable government. It's democratic. They don't have an army. They take their money and put it into things like education and agriculture. It depends on where you are. It's mostly still a very poor country, but there are places, especially where expats have flown in and poured in, and that has changed the economy quite a bit. So some places are one town that's really well known that we've been spending some time in is probably as expensive as Boulder. Hard to believe, but then there's a lot of other places that are quite a bit less. But it depends what you need. If you want the symphony, and if you want really good all different kinds of products and clothing and entertainment and things like that, you need to be in a place where there's that kind of development, where a lot of it is much more rural, much more simple. They call it pura vida, the pure life, where it's just things happen when they happen. Don't be in a hurry. You can't push. It's a very different culture compared to what we're used to here. And I have found that it's much more healthy, and it gives you the time and the space to interact on one-on-one with other people, as opposed to focusing on, being in the rat race and having to earn lots of money to do what you want to do.
What towns come to mind for expats to look at if they want to go down and maybe rent a place for a little bit, vacation, rent, then kind of build a potential path towards having a first or second home there? Where people want to be in Costa Rica has a lot to do with what they want, what's important. If you want to be around other expats, there's in the west part of the country where you would fly into Liberia, there's Tamarindo,
Nosara is the place that we have been spending time. Samara is another smaller town not too far from there. Those are much more expat. It's a drier climate for half of the year. The other place that people often spend time when expats is in what's called the Central Valley. And San Jose, which is the capital, the other airport, is in the Central Valley. It's higher up, so it's cooler. And there's a number of towns, both north and south of that a lot of people have settled into. So it's much more the area that you want to be in and what your experience is. The coastal towns are more expensive, hotter, but more going on there, and certainly more expats.
So in this town that you're moving into and helping to develop, can people rent a house there to or Airbnb it to kind of get a sense? Like, I want to go down there. I'm like, hey, I want to come visit you. Where am I staying? Can I get a feel for it? How can I start to feel more of what this is that you're creating?
There's a lot of Airbnbs in the country, and certainly in places where there's a lot of expats. So that's definitely an option. The condo that we have in Nosara, someone's there right now. We use it as an Airbnb when we're not there. And it's kind of set up to do that easily. There's also a big work center there. There's a big saltwater pool. So it's definitely kind of posh in that way. And it's very, very popular during the dry season, the kind of December to April, when a lot of people come. So if you wanted to come visit, that would be a place for you to check out.
I'm interested. I've been to Costa Rica several times, and what keeps coming to me, if I were to ever have a second place, it's Costa Rica. I love the jungle. That's what inspired me to get into this work, was visiting the jungle, the Amazon. Was just blown away by it. I had no real connection with plants before that, and then just being guided through the jungle. There's so much. I was completely illiterate to the plant world, and it's like they're like, that's food, that's medicine, that's poison, that's shelter, that's good. It's like, whoa, wow. I had no idea. Just it blew my mind. I moved back to Colorado in 2018, and then I just started growing plants. I was like, how do I connect with these plants? And then that brought me to microgreens, and that brought me to drying them and doing what I'm doing now. But a deep passion for myself connecting with nature. I live more in the foothills of Boulder, up the hill a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Where in Costa Rica did you spend time?
I'm forgetting the names of it. I always flew into San Jose because Southwest flies there. Yeah. I'm from Chicago, so Southwest has always been my airline of choice. But I've on the East Coast and the West Coast. I'm forgetting the names at the moment, but really would like to spend more time there. And you said you're in Sara?
Nosara.
Nosara. Okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of like there seems like there is a wormhole between Boulder and Nosara, because there are lots of people who go back and forth quite a bit. There's a lot of similarities. Nosara is considered to be a real health and wellness area. It's got world-class surfing. It's got world-class yoga. Some of the best yoga teachers do retreats there on a regular basis. There's quite a bit of what's called plant medicine, which is way beyond marijuana. It's a lot of other kinds of things. They use it for ceremonies, use it for healing, using it for therapy. So that's a piece of it.
Is that a part of your life at all?
No. I mean, I've certainly, THC is something that growing up here in Colorado, it's something that's been part of my life, but actually nothing else that I've done. I mean, I may at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's part of their culture and lineage, and many of these plants come from there. There's some of these plant spirit medicines that come from the jungle, one of them being ayahuasca. I know many people go down to Costa Rica for that reason. I haven't been to Costa Rica for that reason, but I've been to other parts of the jungle for that reason, and found that to be very healing, eye-opening, grounding, centering, just expansive for me, and see that as a positive experience for most people if they're
if they're ready for it.
Yeah, if they're ready for it. There's a calling that can happen, and set and setting, and who's guiding you through it. That's all really important, and who can hold that container in a beautiful way. And then the integration is really important as well. Like, okay, we get these insights and these learnings and these teachings, and then how do we incorporate that into our everyday life? But I find it to be incredibly powerful that these ancient civilizations have been sitting with for thousands of years all around the world, but more in the jungle is more of like ayahuasca, a lot of different types of tobacco ceremonies as well, different types of floral baths.
Cacao ceremonies are really popular, which is, I mean, it's just delicious hot chocolate, but it's definitely a ceremonial experience when they do it that way. I mean, I would say that what you are doing with microgreens is definitely plant medicine.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just another piece of the puzzle. Yeah.
What type of medicine do you see it as?
Microgreens?
Microgreens and sprouts, what type of medicine are they bringing to people?
I would say that microgreens are definitely highly nutritious food. But then you're getting all the basic things that you need: vitamins, minerals, the freshness of it, just the vitality of something that has really just come into being. So, I just as we were talking about plant medicine, I thought, yeah, well, microgreens would be certainly on that spectrum. So it doesn't have I don't know that it has I'm sure it doesn't have a mind-altering piece of it, but it's a health-promoting food, as many foods are. And that's one of the things I've enjoyed in the food that I've had down in Costa Rica is I think the soil there is much, much richer in terms of the mineral content. So I don't find myself having to take vitamins. Just eating the food, the local food, the fresh food, and things like that are a really important piece of it.
Yeah, they're probably, I don't know much about farming down there, but they're probably much stronger in their regenerative farming practices, working with the land and nature than against it, monocropping with fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides that we're doing here.
It varies. It varies a lot. And I mean, a lot of people think of Costa Rica being, really healthy food, but the what is it? American Fruit Company is still down there. Chiquita, bananas, pineapples, palm oil. There's huge portions. There's huge plantations in many places that still are growing those kind of things that are not good for people and not being done well. Because it's such a biodiverse environment, you have a lot of bugs. Because you have a lot of bugs, people use pesticides or herbicides. So you really have to search out a place that, or farmers that are growing healthy, and most of them are not. Now, whether or not they're using a lot, whether or not they're using the worst kinds of things, I don't know. But we need to eat pretty carefully. And I mostly go for seafood, because it's healthier, depending on what's in the ocean.
Yeah. Any thoughts around heavy metals?
It's certainly something that people bring up. I don't know exactly how, like what fish absorb them more than others.
The big fish.
Like tuna?
Yeah, the bigger the fish. Yeah.
That makes sense.
But even the small fish like sardines, that only live a short period of time and don't really have that much time to absorb heavy metals. They're still in there too.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I do a lot of seafood. I don't do a whole lot of beef, chicken, and I know chickens are raised there. There are certainly some that are raised factory-wise, but at this other community called Rise that we'll be moving to probably early next year, their focus is much more on both family. There's a Waldorf school that's being set up there, and then there's also the land is real. It's a really good place for agriculture. So a lot of the future residents are talking about we just planted trees or had trees planted there for a food forest. So we're going to have at least 20 trees there that grow local fruits, some nuts. So we'll be able to harvest that right out of our backyard.
That's a dream of mine, to have a food forest. And it seems like that's a easier place to do that than most.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I think I don't see myself continuing to live in Colorado. As wonderful as it is, and I do love Boulder, I've been here a long time, there's 6 months, 7 months out of the year where you can't grow anything. So, well, microgreens maybe, but not anything in the ground. So being in a place like Costa Rica, where you can basically grow year round, is something that's very interesting to me, exciting, and also the fact that there's really clean water and pure air all makes it a place that I suspect I can live there for the next 20, 30 years, even though I'm already in my 60s.
How is the Costa Rican government towards expats? What's the process of, are you going to become a Costa Rican citizen, dual citizenship? Are they allow you to buy your own home 100%?
Yeah, in general, the Costa Rican government is very supportive of expats. They have made it pretty easy to be there. You can certainly buy property. There's no restrictions at all around buying and owning and having a title to land or to a home. So that's been good. They recently changed the visa requirements. You used to have to leave every 90 days to get your passport, your visa renewed, and they just moved that to 180 days. So there's definitely people who every 180 days they leave the country and then come back. There's not really a time requirement, so there are people who do something called border runs, which we've done a couple times, where you just drive either up to Nicaragua, or if you're in the south, down to Panama, and you go across the border and you turn around and come back in and do it all in one day. So some people do that, but what we're planning on doing is what's called residency. Citizenship is a long process, and it's not necessary unless you really want it. But residency is something where you have to gather a variety of documents, which we're doing now, and then you submit them to the government. And it takes about a year, maybe a year and a half, to actually get your residency card. But then you have a handful of benefits once you've done that. And one of them is you don't have to leave the country every 180 days.
Yeah, well, very interesting that this is coming up. Costa Rica is of great interest to me. I'm planning to visit sometime in the next 6 months and bring my girlfriend down there so she could feel it and see it. And it's always been just on my mind as a second place to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's definitely people that are, a lot of Canadians. I think that's because of the climate situation. How do you like warm, humid environments?
I love the jungle, but I don't know how I would love it for every season. Mm-hmm. And I don't know for how long I would love it. But I really like the idea. Like I said, I've done a couple of 2-week vacations down there, and what would it be like to do more of an extended vacation? I work now remotely, so does my girlfriend. Could we be down there for a month at the peak best season? You're saying December to April. Yeah, just sometime in there. That sounds like fun. And if that goes well, then it's like, okay, well, what could the next step look like? And then the next step, and how could we lean in more? If the doors are opening and it all feels good.
And that's how I would encourage anybody to do it, is to take it in a small step. Don't just move down there. Go there for a month and see how that is. Remote work is really, the ability to do remote work is really becoming more and more normal. People use Starlink. People use the local Wi-Fi that's plenty good for this kind of thing. So yeah, I would, and I'd be happy to give you our information so you can, hook up with us, because we expect to, once we sell our home here, we expect to be going back down there in the next month or so. So we'll be there.
Now we're talking, Zev. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear.
We have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom place, so you got a place to stay.
Oh, great. They're very, very generous of you. Thank you. And it would be a fun place to land and then kind of move around from there. And we'd love to share or think about potential itinerary while down there,
sure.
With the mindset of, maybe I would get a second place. And the way that you do it in a similar way that you did it, of rent it, Airbnb it in like a turnkey kind of a way, and just what would more and more roots look like down there. What do people think about living in Panama or Nicaragua?
I know a little bit about Nicaragua, and I think it's even more poor. I mean, people come from Nicaragua and go to Costa Rica. Nicaraguans go to Costa Rica to work and make quite a bit more money, even though it's not much compared to what we're used to. Panama, I think, is a whole nother story, because it is more more first world, at least part of it. The fact that there's the canal there is a big piece of it because it's a big part of their economy and how people think of them. I've never been there. I don't know. Nicaragua, I've been there for a half an hour twice. So it doesn't really
Doing
count.
your border runs?
Exactly.
Nice. I've been to Panama just as a fly through as well. But I think in terms of future proofing, with the Panama Canal, it's like they'll always have access to goods because that is one of the most popular port or ways that goods are transported in the world.
Well, and once the United States, takes over Panama and it becomes the 52nd state, then, you'll be back home.
Do you think Panama will become a state before Canada?
I don't think either of them become a
What
state.
about Gaza? Did you hear Trump recently talk about Gaza on how he's like, we're just going to take it. We're just going to take it.
He says a lot. So I don't think that's going to happen. And just the fact that he has the cojones to even say that just shows what kind of a worldview he has. So, I don't think that's going to happen. And you've got a whole bunch of countries right around there who I don't think would be that excited about Americans doing a development right there and having a bigger presence than we already have.
And there's maybe 2 million people living in Gaza today. Where do those people go? Who knows? But very interesting. What about?
Did you want to touch on hemp?
I did want to touch on hemp. I want to touch on one more thing around Trump, and that is the recent fallout with Elon Musk. Have you been following that at all?
Oh yeah.
That is just like I can't stop watching it. I mean, we're on the
fifth day or something?
Yeah, maybe, but it's like really ramping up. And the kind of the meme is, mom and dad are getting a divorce, and it's like you've got
in public
you've got the most powerful man in the world, Trump, and the richest man in the world, Elon. Elon doesn't really seem to care so much about money. He seems to care about progressing our future and but both with massive egos, it seems like. And it's escalating in a really surprising way. And it's
are you surprised?
I'm surprised because I thought the first few days, maybe 100 days of Trump's presidency, he was doing the things that he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, he passes that or sneaks that bill through Congress in the dead of night, per many Congress people, and Elon is saying, and it's like, what is this? He's signing executive orders as well. One of them be for 280 million acres of national forests to now be open to logging. Yeah, you heard about that?
No, but I have been hearing about people saying that we have this incredible resource, in our country that we've not used. And I was wondering if that was going to be either oil and gas drilling or lumber, and just take over the whole national park system. So no, I think I'm not surprised that they had a fallout because Trump has a fallout with everyone. So the question was, how soon was it going to happen? And Elon, I'm amazed that he went along. I think he just knew that he had 130 days before he had to jump out of the job.
Like by law.
Exactly.
You can't, yeah.
He had to jump out of that. And then he's just saying, you know what? A lot of the things that you're talking about doing are hurting my companies. I also heard, and I don't know if you can confirm this, that a lot of the agencies that Elon helped to dismantle were all investigating his companies.
I haven't heard anything about that. I heard that he wanted to have a much bigger impact, but couldn't because 85% of the budget is protected by law. It's like that's like locked in. You can't go and erase $2 trillion worth, with Doge because most of the money is protected by law.
Yeah. Well, and the things that he went in and screwed around with are just not that big agencies to begin with. USAID was investigating some of his dealings, some of his companies. USDA also is. I think the FCC also was. I mean, all of the companies, all of the agencies that have been dismantled or at least really hobbled we're investigating some aspect of either his dealings or his actual companies. So, that would make sense that he would go in and try to clear those out for his own purpose. I don't think it's going to have. It's certainly not helping the budget. It's not going to make much of a dent in the budget at all, especially when, like, my housemate who got fired is getting paid through September. So it's like there's no savings there, and that's true for many of the people who got fired. Is that they're on either they got a retirement with a pension, some kind of a severance, or they're just getting paid to not work. So it's smoke and mirrors in terms of really saving money on the budget.
Who do you like in government right now?
I lean a lot more toward local because I think that's where the control ultimately is, and I think it's going to be interesting. Let's say the Department of Education actually does get wiped out. It's only like 4,000 employees, but if it gets wiped out, then I hope that money really does get distributed to the states or even further down, and then the states hopefully do something useful with it. So I really do lean more on governors. I think Jared Polis is really good. I think Gavin Newsom in California is. I've heard mixed things about it, but I think in general, he's trying to do good things. I don't know that much about it, even though I'm from California. I haven't followed it in a long time.
They certainly didn't do a great job with the LA fires. But that was a massive fail at the local and state level. I
wonder if they could have done it differently, though, just because of the scale of it. My brother is a retired fire chief, and he was just saying that, when you have all that tinder that's as dry as it was and the wind, you can't outrun it. It's like the fire we had here in Superior. When you got 80-mile-an-hour winds, nothing could stop that kind of a spread of fire.
Maybe not, but you can at least be prepared to fight it. They were fighting it with both hands tied behind their back. They didn't have any water.
They definitely, because it was so big, the water definitely ran out, or the pressure went out, I should say.
And they didn't even have any water to start with in some places. They had these massive reservoirs. I don't know exactly what they're called, these big retainers for water for the fires, and they'd been empty for a significant period of time with many warnings of, hey, we're at fire risk, all this tinder, all this wind, all this, like, we should be prepared. Instead, they were decreasing budget around the fire department and just not prepared with water.
I think it's a perfect storm. Everything with climate change and the budget, and like you said, they reprioritize to other areas, and the fact that our fire management, I think, we don't allow fires to happen. So when they do happen, they're huge.
That's a good point. Where I'm from in Chicago, they do a really good job. I would say the best government agency in Chicago, or at least that I see, is the forest preserves. And they're constantly doing controlled burns. And you can see how much healthier the forest is. On one side of the path, it hasn't been burned, and you could barely see through it. And it's just, you see 10 feet into the forest. On the other side, it's been burned, and you could see hundreds of feet, and animals can move around. It's just so much healthier. We're like anti-controlled burn, it seems like.
Definitely.
Who do you think the Democrats are going to run for president?
I don't know that we have to worry about it because we've already been told there's not going to be any more elections. I think it's a real question about what happens. I think that the Senate or the Congress is going to flip in 26, and then you'll have Republican president and a Democratic-controlled Congress, which means for 2 years nothing will happen.
Yeah, full gridlock.
Yeah, exactly. Not that anything's happening right now. I think they definitely need new, younger. I wish that people were willing and open to someone really different. A woman, a black woman. Obviously that was a piece of the puzzle why she didn't get enough votes, but I think people are so sick of it that like 30% of the voters didn't vote at all. So there's a lot of apathy within the entire citizenry. And right now, I say that the problems that we're having in our country right now is a total lack of our education system. We have a huge number of people who simply weren't confronted with how to do critical thinking, how to understand how things how things have consequences. And they simply say, oh, wow, I'm having a hard time right now. The current president didn't fix my problems, so I want someone new. And I don't know if this person's going to be better, but they're telling me they're going to fix all my problems, so I'm going to vote for them. So I think what do they call the low information voters? I think I can say that here in Boulder, Colorado, but I think in general that is a big challenge, and the education system did not help.
So the Democrats had Tulsi Gabbard. She ran for president in 2020 and then left the party and became independent. And then they had RFK, both lifetime Democrats. He ran as a Democrat and was basically also forced out of the party and ran independent. Now, both of them on, what is it called, on Trump's team.
Well, they're in the cabinet.
In the cabinet, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean,
maybe two of the Democrats' strongest players both decide to leave the party.
Well, I think that one of the challenges with the 2024 election is that you had an incumbent, whether you like him or not, running. And there's kind of a cultural ethic that if you've got an incumbent running, very few people are willing to run against him. So whether he's the right person or not.
Who's the incumbent?
Well, that would have been Biden.
Oh, okay.
So the people who tried to run against him, I don't think they had a very good chance, just because the momentum, the ideological and political momentum, really just kept him in power, whether he should have been or not. And it sounds like he was definitely losing his mind.
And a lot of people are covering up for it too.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that whole thing was just a shit show, pardon the expression.
I'm with you. I think I'm a Democrat of like the 60s and who that party was. Who the party is today does not resonate with me. And
a lot of Republicans would say the same thing about the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
It's just all gone in a weird direction, and maybe even just gone together.
They have more in common with each other than they have with us.
Yeah.
For sure. Behind the scenes, they're made for TV reactions and, hey, I'm fight and screaming and going crazy. But behind the scenes, they're like, yeah, let's just get rich together.
Yeah. It seems there needs to be some rules around. I think term limits for everyone it would probably help some. But it's so built into the system that it just takes. I was involved in the Green Party back in the early '80s. Barry Commoner was run for president, and I didn't support doing that, because I thought we need to build a party first before running someone that nobody knows. But I think multi-party is really helpful. Most countries have, a multi-party system, and you just allowed to get, it's like back to consensus. You get more voices in the room, you get more perspective. And right now we've got two parties that don't seem to be that different. Yeah.
Going on to hemp, who would you say the spirit of hemp is? If you were to personify the plant, who is the plant?
Hemp was brought to this country. It may have been here already, but it was brought to this country by the colonists because it provided just really important, critical, fundamental products and resources that everybody needed. So like the Mayflower, the sails were made of hemp. The rope was made of hemp. The oil that they brought was hemp oil. So it was just, in the clothing that they wore was probably hemp, or at least a hemp blend. So it was just an integral part in helping to start this country, whether we knew it or thought about it at all. So it's very much a pioneering energy, I think, and also very diverse. The number of things that you can make and have been made from it are just hard to believe. And that's something that I think over the last 10 or 12 years that we've been kind of recalibrating or restarting the industrial hemp industry in this country.
Because we were under prohibition for 80 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and it's a complicated story, but it's mostly because it was competing with other industries. When hemp was kind of becoming a big deal early on. It's right when nylon was invented, DuPont. Also Hearst, who had paper, had all these trees, and he didn't like the idea that you could make paper out of hemp a lot less expensive. There's also oil, Standard Oil of California, one of the Standard Oil companies. They all got together and said, we can't have this. And that's when they put a tax on marijuana, which they considered hemp to be the same.
And they confused us and made us think that they are one and the same.
Right.
And even today, it's still very confusing for people. Is CBD going to make me high? Am I going to lose my job from this? I don't want. It's like, no, they are cousin plants.
Yeah, no, I think it all started off early on, much more as industrial hemp that we are familiar with. And what happened is through selective breeding, just like roses, they selectively bred plants that had higher and higher
THC.
Yeah, higher effects on your brain,
which I think is very dangerous. I don't think people need it that much. It's like you're like blacking out on cannabis.
Oh yeah, I mean, where we've gotten to right now is such a different story than where they started. And when I was in college, I think marijuana had like 5% THC, and that obviously was plenty. And now when it's 25% or 30%, it can be dangerous. I mean, we've got kids that are showing up in emergency rooms because it's just too much.
And luckily, these plants can't kill you, but it's going to be, you might make some mistakes. You might go drive on it and get in an accident, or you might fall and hurt yourself. But it's like, why do you need it that strong? It's no longer at that point, in my view, a medicine. It's more of something used to escape.
Oh yeah. It's a sedative. It's a way to, like you say, get out of a bad situation. I think part of it is the American philosophy, or maybe beyond American, of more is better. So just that whole idea of like, oh well, you have 5%, I have 7%, oh I have 9%, and just continuing to think about more and more, and then because there's more in it, you can charge more. So back in Colorado in 2012, we passed a law here that allowed recreational marijuana to be legalized, and the last 5 words of that ballot was, and the growing of industrial hemp. Nobody knew it, but I saw it early on. I said, this is going to become huge, because I knew about industrial hemp, that it's
huge all over the world.
Right. It could be made into all sorts of different things.
There's many countries that are all in on hemp, from China and Canada to much of Europe.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's been around for at least 10,000 years. So it's something that humans have interacted with in many different ways for a long, long time.
It seems like we've co-evolved with it. We have a whole endocannabinoid system, a perfect lock and key to be able to take these cannabinoids in, to be able to accept that the medicine of the plant into us.
And we make our own cannabinoid called anandamide. So it is basically structurally very similar to CBD, which is why CBD works the way it works. THC is also very similar. It works in the same lock and key mechanism, and they work together because they're both in the plant to varying different degrees. So when I saw that those 5 words, I thought this is going to become big, and I researched who put those words in the bill, and found a few people in Denver who had something that they called the Rocky Mountain Hemp Association. It was a single 1-page website, and they were basically consultants to help people figure out what this thing is and how do you make it work? How do you make a business out of it? And I reached out to them. I said, hey, I think this is a big deal. Is this a real association? They said, no, it's just a small group of us. I said, would you like it to be an association? And I said, well, yeah. And I said, well, I can do that, because I was the executive director of the Co-Housing Association, and I thought, I can do this. So in 2013, I created the Rocky Mountain Hemp Association, which then a year later became the National Hemp Association, and I was the executive director of that. So I've been involved with it for the past 10, 12 years, watching it go through this incredible run-up through getting federally legalized in 2018 to being overproduced, and all of the prices just crashed
A bit of a
because of
boom
that.
and bust.
Very much a boom and bust. But
Was around CBD or all of it?
it was around anything having to do with hemp, but CBD was kind of the leader of the pack at that point in terms of a product.
Because that's mostly what the U.S. was growing hemp for. They weren't growing it for seed. They weren't growing it for industrial because we didn't have the infrastructure, the decorticators to be able to process.
Yeah. And the money wasn't there. It's a whole different economy when you're thinking about growing these big kind of bushes that will create, they're full of flowers and they create all this oil. So I was very much involved in watching that whole process go up and down and then become, pretty much, well, it's slowly coming back, but what's coming back is much more the grain and fiber elements of it, because we have now figured out how to make products out of it. Hemp wood and hemp insulation, different kinds of building products that are starting to come in, hempcrete.
Which is naturally anti-mold, pest, bacteria, it's fire retardant.
You've done your homework.
I'm very versed in hemp. Hemp's one of my favorite plants.
Wow. Well, what would you say is the spirit of hemp?
To me, many Saint Marie, feminine, very feminine. I would say a lot of abundance. It's food, medicine, shelter, clothing. It's like hemp can do everything. It might be the oldest relationship with a plant that we have. I'm not familiar with another plant that we've co-evolved with.
Tobacco?
I don't know the time around it. That it very much could be where tobacco is very much like a fatherly spirit.
Okay.
Cannabis to me, hemp,
feminine.
Very much like a motherly type spirit. Some of these jungle medicines, say ayahuasca, is frequently referred to as grandma. Very much more of the, but all of them can be a little bit shape shifty and be who they need you to be and show up, in the way where they're the best medicine to you. I would say it's a feminine, abundant, beautiful. It's sexy to me.
Yeah. Well, walking through a field of basically feminized hemp is just so, we talk, hey ladies, hey girls, and we often say that when we've done it. I've grown a couple plants, but I've never really grown it. I was much more on the administrative side in terms of helping educate people all the time and then bringing people together and helping figure out the technologies that we needed and we had to create this whole supply chain that didn't exist. And now pieces of it are really quite mature. But what I was going to say before is that one of the biggest issues that kept hemp tied down is the fact that the FDA never gave guidance around it. They never said, what was a dose, what was an okay limit per day, what does it need to say on the labels and things like that. And they just kept pushing. They just said, we need more studies, or we don't know. And they never did it. So the big companies, their lawyers would just say, we can't do this. We can't go ahead until we have some kind of a guidance around what we can and can't do.
Is there anything, we said a few industries, one being like plastics, paper, textiles, anything around pharmaceuticals suppressing the hemp plant?
I don't believe, the simple answer is I don't believe so. And that's because hemp, as you know, has an abundant number of property of compounds in it. There's 105 cannabinoids that we know of, and we've only really studied maybe a dozen of them. Pharmaceutical, the only way that they can do what they do because of the structure of their industry is they can only deal with one compound at a time. So what they did do is they isolated CBD and did all the studies that they need to do and came out with two medicines, Epidiolex being the main one, which is being used for several kids' epilepsy. But the question is a single cannabinoid the best way to do that? Or should it be the whole plant where you're getting a whole variety of different compounds, cannabinoids, flavonoids, terpenes, the smell portion of it. So
described as full spectrum, and that's like the whole symphony.
Yeah, the entourage effect, they call it.
Yes, and there's synergistic benefits amongst them. If you were to just isolate and just have CBD, it's hard to know what the benefit of that is versus the whole thing, but it could be half the benefit.
Right. There's no way to know, but that's the only way that the pharmaceutical industry, the way that it's structured now, is able to take a product to market. So I don't think the pharmaceutical industry is a threat at all.
I think it's a massive threat. Yeah, I'm in the supplement business myself, and I see that the way that the FDA, USDA regulates supplements is the same way that, a very similar way that they regulate pharmaceuticals to make it extremely challenging for supplements to compete. I think the pharmaceuticals are anti-competitive against natural products. I think CBD is very inexpensive. They can't patent it. They can't make money on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And as you know, there's a kind of a revolving door between like the FDA and industry. So they're kind of the same group of people. And I think, to my earlier point, that's the whole reason the FDA has never given any guidance. That's how they strangled it.
That's the conspiracy. I believe that too.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not even a conspiracy. It's just a real obvious lack of regulation. They just ignored it. Even though we went to them again and again and again and provided studies and provided everything that they said they wanted, they still dragged their feet on it. It was a big deal just to get hemp legalized. But then the industry goes through and says, oh, well, since you can't do CBD, let's just use our chemical creativity and create, Delta 8 and Delta 10 and HHC and all the other different variations on the hemp theme that are psychoactive, which I think has been a real problem.
Who's doing a really good job in hemp either in the country or more across the world? What countries are really leading in hemp?
Well, China certainly is leading in hemp with the textiles. They've been doing it for 100 years and they've got the system down. But it's interesting, they are not doing giant farms. It's mostly small farms all over the country that then is coordinated together and combined and then brought to the processor. So it employs a lot of people. So in terms of the other building materials, there's just not that many doing that. In terms of the other products, it's in some ways it's still in its infancy because there's just not. Part of what we're seeing is using cannabinoids or CBD specifically for topicals because that's outside the FDA's regime. So if you put it on your skin, use it for facial, use it for body lotion, all those kind of things.
If you've got sore muscles, you put the CBD lotion or balm on top and it's very, very effective.
Yeah. No,
as long as it is efficacious, meaning there's really CBD in it. I think that's a huge issue in the industry is there's a lot of fake or really low quality or just lying about how much CBD is actually in it.
Well, the regulations they just haven't been completed. So we have a lot of labs here that do testing. Some of them are really good. Some of them are not so good. And like you said, there's definitely a lot of people out there who say one thing and it's very inconsistent. So you don't know. And my wife has worked with a couple labs here, knowing what it takes to do it really well. And it's a lot. It's hard. It's expensive. So
we do a lot of lab testing with our product, and it's extremely expensive. That's my number one expense is lab testing.
Who do you use?
I use a number of places. I mean, everybody uses Eurofin because they're the biggest in the country. They've been buying up everybody. I'm not testing for cannabinoids. I'm testing for very unique vitamins, minerals,
or heavy metals and other.
Sure, we test for bad things, but that's a dime a dozen, and that's very inexpensive. You could test you can test for mold for $30. You want to test for sulforaphane or Nerf2 activation? That's thousands of dollars per test. So there's very, you want to test for vitamin D, that's $250. And But yeah, the bad things, very inexpensive, easy to test for. And we do that as well. But it's more interesting to try to discover the good things. And so little has been discovered. They say less than 10% of the things that are in like any of these plants has even been discovered.
Really?
Yeah. So we don't even know what's in a lot of these plants. We don't know why these plants activate different pathways in the body. We know some compounds that are known to activate the body's defenses and detoxification processes. But then there's other things where like we don't know why it's doing it, but it's doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the other constraints you've dealt with in the hemp CBD, I think operationally it's very challenging for a business because I was in the CBD business for a little bit. I had a hemp tea. So my first product was microgreens in loose leaf tea. And then I was the second CBD tea in the country. We had a vapor distilled CBD done locally here that was extracted through vapor. So versus ethanol or alcohol or very gentle.
That was vapor distilled?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember them. Good guys.
Actually. Yeah, really good guys. And so they made a sticky powder for me that I would just tumble in with the leaves. And then I was in the CBD business. It became way too complicated to educate on microgreens, which already people don't know about, and everyone calls them sprouts, and CBD as well. And then operationally, my insurance went up 10x. I couldn't get banking, payment processing. I wasn't allowed to do paid ads on any platform, Google, Facebook, wherever. I wasn't allowed to be on Amazon. It was just like operationally, it was still a nightmare.
A lot of that is still a constraint. The other thing is that research. You can't get grants to do research maybe a little bit now, but early on, you couldn't get any grants for research, certainly not for marijuana because it was a Schedule I drug. But even for hemp, it's been very difficult. So to understand what's really going on other than just taking it to Botanicor or SC Labs or Eurofins, like you said, just to do a basic potency test is really all people were able to do, or tests for heavy metals or pesticides. So just the whole research to understand what those pathways are has been totally stopped.
What's one thing that you believe to be true about the hemp plant that most people either don't know or maybe wouldn't agree with?
Well, I think it's not the hemp plant. It's these creating these alternative cannabinoids, these
synthetic?
Well, yeah. I mean, like the Delta 8 and Delta 10 and all those other ones. I think it's a really bad thing to do because they're not. People say they're hemp, and it's like, well, they came from hemp, but they're not. You're not going to find them in nature. I think the other thing that people don't realize is that there are like 105 cannabinoids, and they keep hearing about THC, they hear about CBD, and that's about it. But when you start talking about all the other ones that we already know some about, CBN, CBC, CBG, all of those other bigger ones, most people don't know anything about it, and the industry didn't even get to that point. There was a little bit of those, and now you can buy things that are combinations of those, but they also throw in reishi mushrooms and they throw in other things that I think is a good thing because it makes it more complex. So I think people just don't know that much about what the potential is, and we're not given the opportunity to find out about it.
If the technology was there and you could bring any hemp product to market, what would it be? The technology, the infrastructure, the knowing, there's thousands of use cases for hemp. What are you bringing to market?
What I would want to bring to market, well, a couple things. One would be load-bearing bricks, load-bearing, so that they are identical to concrete bricks.
Is that thought of as hempcrete?
Well, it would be made of hempcrete, but it is a block. Mm-hmm. It's a dense block that you can make load-bearing. Right now, hempcrete, the way it's being used is not scalable. It's great material, but it's a lot of work, and not many people know how to work with it.
So bricks, because we already know how to work with bricks. That's why you like it?
Well, it would replace concrete bricks, which is incredibly toxic, incredibly energy intensive. and it would just be a great way to do it. And there's been work trying to do that.
So like a cinder block, I just bought a couple cinder blocks here. They're like $1 or $2 a piece. What might a hemp version of a cinder block cost today?
Well, we don't have the infrastructure to make them.
Yeah.
So I can't give you a number. But the thing is you can buy hemp hurd, the inner part of the stalk that you make hempcrete out of, at like $40 a pound, 40 cents a pound. So, maybe there's a couple pounds of it in a cinder block, plus a little bit of lime. So it's not that expensive, but we just don't have the infrastructure or the technology to actually make that, or the certification. I mean, one of the reasons that people haven't done it yet is that it's expensive to get those things tested and to prove that it does, it can carry the weight, and that it can deal with, whatever the issues are. So fire testing has been done, but that's about it.
Okay. So you like the bricks. What else you like?
One thing that I was hoping was going to be created that maybe it's being worked on is a super sensitive, like breathalyzer test, or not even breathalyzer, but just testing mechanism. Because right now they're really crude, and so if you take a little bit of hemp and you mix it with whatever they do for the testing, and there's even a microscopic amount of THC in it, it goes purple, and all of a sudden they think you have marijuana.
Yeah, it's called going hot. And it's an arbitrary number.
And this is when it's not even hot. This is just if it's a tiny amount.
Yeah, so going hot, so is it 0.3% THC?
Yeah, a third
anything
of a
over
percent.
that, which is a totally arbitrary number that was just made up. But yeah, then what do? They have to burn the whole crop. It's all just...
Yeah, and a lot of it has been going hot. An interesting story. So I started the first CBD, smokable hemp company called Herbalites in 2017.
It's still around?
Here, no.
I want one right now.
I sold it to my two of the farmers that I was buying product from.
Nice.
But what I did is I would put it in bags and ship it all over the country. And I get a call, and they said, "Is this Herbalites?" I said, "Yeah." I says, "Well, this is Sergeant Smith from the Boulder Police Department. We have a packet. Did you ship any of your product to Utah?" And I said, "Yes, I ship it all over the country." And he says, "Well, we got a package sent back to us, and we opened it up, and we saw your certificate of analysis in there that showed that it was hemp. So we need to get it back to you." So I went in and had to go into wherever the evidence locker was, and they had the box there, and they had it. And the woman who was there was the marijuana control officer, and had a great conversation. And that's where I talked with her about it. And she says, "Yeah, right now, we don't have good ways of testing if it's actually hemp, because they're not sensitive enough. Like I say, if there's just a tiny, tiny bit, way less than 0.3% in there, it just goes purple, and then we think we have marijuana." So that was a technology that I was hoping would be created, and maybe it's being worked on. I don't know.
To be able to test the difference between hemp for CBD and cannabis with THC.
Exactly.
Their test today is just basically saying everything is THC.
If there's even a tiny bit of THC in it, then it looks like it's marijuana.
I do think building materials are a really interesting use case. So your bricks, and then what are those like 2x4s and
the engineered lumber.
Engineered lumber, yeah.
Like Trex. So that is being done. You grind it up really small and then mix it in with other things, and you can make all sorts of great building materials from it. Again, we don't have the infrastructure, and we're not growing enough of it to bring the price down. People say you can make all these different things out of hemp, and that's absolutely true, but it's all an economy of scale. You can make biogas. You can make diesel gas from hemp, but you got to grow 1 million acres of it in order for the price to come down and be competitive. Same with clothing. You need to grow a lot of it. So, Canada has been growing hemp for 25 years, but it's for seed. Because of the climate up there, they never really grow very tall. So they never thought about the stalk being helpful for fiber or hurd. So they just would grow the seed, and then they'd either have seed for food or they'd crush it for oil. So, and we have started to encroach upon that. I don't know if we're going to take over more because the climate works really well up there for that.
I take a hemp oil capsule every day, which is like competitive with a fish oil. And then I also put organic hemp seed from Costco on as many meals
All
as
Canadian.
I can. All Canadian. There's like nothing coming from there. I'd say last I had checked, over 90% of the hemp seed that we consume in the U.S. is from Canada.
Exactly. And that's because they grow it at a scale and they have the infrastructure there to be able to do that.
In over 80 years, we've lost all the farmers. We've lost the knowledge on how to do it. We've got to bring people from other countries over here to show us how to even do anything.
Yeah, well, and that whole decorticator idea is that we used to do it, but we did it by hand. And nowadays, you can't really do it that way. So the technology of trying to figure out how to do that is, I was a consultant for a company for a while that was trying to cottonize the fiber so that you could make, really wonderful things from it. Anything from feminine hygiene products to diapers to clothing if you grow enough of it. So again, it's all a matter of scale, and no one's going to take the risk of growing thousands of acres of it if they don't know that they've got a buyer.
And if there's risk of it going hot and it all gets burned.
Yeah, exactly.
One idea that when I was going to like hemp expos for a while, and I was like really into hemp. I was all in on hemp, and I'm just like, I don't have this is my first business. I just don't have the business acumen to bring a hemp product to market, and it was too challenging. But one idea that was really taking off, this was probably 5 years ago, and I would love to see somebody in the U.S. do this. You spoke to women's hygiene. In China, there's multiple, I guess they've got their own stock exchange over there, that makes sense, but there's multiple public companies in China that are just doing women's tampons. So why is that interesting? Because if you infuse it with CBD, apparently that's helpful for cramps and pain. It's more absorbent than cotton, which is primarily used. Cotton is definitely one of the top 3 most heavily pesticided crops in the country. So if you are going to use cotton, anything, especially something you're going to put inside yourself, make sure it's organic. And then what else about it? It's anti-mold, it's antibacteria. It's just like a cleaner. It's like naturally like so I have not seen that. I recently did an Amazon and Google search for that. I thought it's like an amazing product for someone to make here in the U.S. Would love to see that.
Yeah, for a little while I was consulting on a company that was trying to do that, but the requirements here, that the testing again to prove that it is safe is huge. And a small company can't really afford to do that. So you'd need to have a big company who could afford to do that, but then they want to know that they've got unlimited supply, so that if it goes well, that they know they have sourcing.
Yeah, supply is a huge part. If we're going to bring a product to market, we need to be able to know that we can grow it.
Another interesting product is oil well. Well, oil well cleanup is one of them because it's so absorbent when you take that, when you grind it really small. But also putting it in the drilling mud. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but you put the hemp in the drilling mud and it seals the borehole, so you don't start having leakage. And they're doing all sorts of other things for that. Some of it is polymers, some of it is ground up walnut shells, some of it is paper, recycled paper that they add into the drilling fluid. So that was something that we were working with a company that was trying to order it in Italy, I believe, but it's just so hard to get things started. You need really good capital. You need really good people that understand the science of it. So it just never took off.
Well, if you get inspired around hemp and you see a category that can grow because there is the supply there, please reach out.
Sure.
I'm interested. Where my skill set is much more around the marketing side and building teams.
Okay. Well, one product that is really interesting is called hemp wood. And what they're based out of Kentucky, so they have a pretty good supply. But what they do is, it's like, you've seen the bamboo flooring. Mm-hmm. So it's basically they take bamboo and they press it and cook it, and it turns into a piece of wood, essentially. They're doing exactly the same thing with hemp. They take the full stalk, so the amount of processing is minimal. They take the full stalk, they put it into the same machine that they put the bamboo in, and they they press it, they cook it, and it turns into lumber. And they're both cutting it so that it can be used for flooring. It's beautiful. And they're also keeping it in bigger sheets so that you can use it for lumber, for tables, for shelving, things like that. And that's a company that, it's growing, but I don't know if it's growing fast enough. But they've always use marketing.
I love that idea. I wonder what that machine looks like and how easy it is to get one of those machines. Interesting to partner, interesting to compete as well. Mm-hmm. I love that idea because it's so sustainable to grow, similar to bamboo, grows very quickly. You could have multiple turns of it per year, depending on where it's being grown.
Exactly, yeah.
Places like Hawaii, they can grow it year round, and they could maybe have 4 rotations per year. I don't know, maybe 2 rotations in Colorado?
No, actually only 1 in Colorado, 2 in Kentucky.
Okay.
So yeah, it depends. Interestingly, people have asked me about hemp in Costa Rica. It doesn't, the climate doesn't allow it to really grow.
Oh, that's too bad.
Where you have 12 and 12 night and day, so you don't have the ability for it to really grow before it starts to flower, so it stops growing. And then also it's really wet.
Have you ever juiced the hemp plant, the leaves?
Yes, definitely.
What did that feel like?
It's like wheatgrass. And I've also, when I did herbalites, I would dry both the flowers and the leaves, and I would grind it up, and I'd do a variety of things. I would put it in a shaker, and it's just like grandma's oregano, and just put it on salads or put it in something, and it was really good.
Mm-hmm. That's how I envision you using these microgreens. Most people use it in a similar way. Okay. Egg, salad, sandwich, smoothie, whatever you want. Just don't cook it.
So put it on afterward.
Yeah. Once you've plated whatever you're eating, that's when you put it on. Don't, put it in the oven, or don't put heat to it, because they're very fragile. Some of the benefits, some of the key antioxidants are very fragile.
Well, how do you dry them?
Freeze dry it.
Oh, so you make them cold. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Freeze it to -40 degrees. The freeze dryer is very, there's almost no heat involved in it. And under extreme pressure, it just pulls the moisture out. So that's how it can keep it can keep the texture, the flavor, the color, but most importantly, the nutrients.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, Be Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded Be Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
Hey, to wrap this up, I want to do a little rapid fire with you, sponsored by Be Micro.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. And these are just 1-2 word answers. One plant you think will shape the future?
Industrial hemp.
Soil or hydroponics?
Soil.
Favorite way to reconnect with nature?
Walking in the jungle.
One thing you'd change about how we grow food?
More local.
First book that changed your worldview?
Ecotopia.
Utopia, dystopia, or protopia, which is harder to write?
Utopia.
Fictional world you'd live in besides your own?
Atlantis.
Screenplay or novel, which is harder?
I've done both. Harder to write or harder to get produced?
Both.
Screenplay is probably harder to make happen.
Most underrated sustainable tech?
I'm blanking. I don't.
One big change we'll see in the next 12 months?
People leaving the U.S.
One big change we'll see in the next 5 years?
Less vaccines.
What does a better future feel like to you?
Sustainable.
If Earth had a theme song, what would it be?
Make it happen. Flash dance.
Zev, thank you so much. Where can people learn more about you and your work?
My website is protopianfutures.com, and that it has a listing of what Protopia is, some of the writings that I've done, and the books that I've written.
And what if people, are you still doing consult for hemp industry, for these community building? Is there any type of people that would find benefit reaching out to you for any type of consult?
Well, I'm a subject matter expert in the hemp industry, so I'm hired by attorneys and insurance companies to help with conflicts that they're working with, and I definitely am a consultant to eco-villages and co-housing communities.
Beautiful. Anything else that you'd like to share with us?
No, thank you very much for this time, and it's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Zev.